here, let me tap into this little vein for a second. You were just telling me that you're actually getting nervous as an Ohio State fan about this game.
I am.
Repeat that for me and tell me why.
I feel like I get like this before every single big game that Ohio State has, where I start the week super confident, maybe because I'm coming off watching them get a victory and like it's fresh, and then I kind of like bring myself down a little bit. This game just very much feels like one that Ohio State could blow. And I think it's because nobody expects them to. If it was reversed, if everybody thought this was going to be the game they get upset, I feel like I would think 100% without any lack of confidence that we were going to blow them out.
But did we talk about this on the podcast or off mic? But it's like a trap game is only a trap game if it's a trap game. You know what I mean?
Like, it feels like that. Like nobody's giving Penn State a chance except for Penn State.
Yeah.
And even some of their fans, like I was reading a thing on Twitter today where it said like drop your score predictions, and every single Penn State fan was like, we have to play a flawless game, it's not going to happen. Sean Clifford's coming off of a good game, which means he's going to be atrocious, and they're not confident, which makes me not confident, because those are the games that, like, what was it a couple years ago? It was Purdue, I think, where everybody thought there's no way that Ohio State loses this game. And they showed up and got absolutely smacked in the mouth and dominated from start to finish. And I don't think it will be that. I don't think Penn State will come in and dominate Ohio State. No. But I'm very nervous that Ohio State's going to come in and take it lightly.
It reminds me of like last year, a lot of the Michigan beat talked about, and I don't remember if it was Mason Brew or MGO Blog, but one of those beats had talked about for Michigan to, it was basically the same thing, for Michigan to win this game, they're going to have to be perfect.
Yeah.
And the comment was made, Aiden Hutchinson will have to have a Heisman game. And this was before he was really in the running for the Heisman, so it was kind of almost an offhand comment, and that's exactly what they got. So I agree. That's the sort of thing where, Sean Clifford ain't winning the Heisman, but Sean Clifford's going to have that type of
But he can have games where he plays well.
Joey Porter is going to have himself a day covering, whatever receiver he gets put on. And if they can do that, it's going to have to be perfect, but they've got the talent.
Yeah.
They have the horses. It's just, can they execute the way that they're supposed to?
Well, and people are going to be up and at the game. Obviously, it's a huge matchup. I know everybody talks about, like, the Penn State night game. If it was that, I would be, oh, man, shaking, nervous. Like, I would be so not confident. But I still think you're going to have a large crowd. I talked about it on the podcast of, like, Ohio State's going to have to come in there and take that crowd out early. Because if you come in and you go 3 and out, or you get stopped on your first drive and come away with no points, and Penn State goes down and scores, that worries me.
We talked about this too, because everything comes back to the game at the end of the day, where Michigan that was kind of the strategy with Michigan last year too, was Stroud's first, major road game. This is the first major road game he's had since that game.
Yeah.
And Michigan got the ball first, and I was so disappointed because I was like, man, I don't want the ball first, because if you don't score right away, you're in trouble already. Mm-hmm. And Michigan went down and scored, and obviously Ohio State could not get the crowd out of it.
Yeah.
And you felt that late in the game when you're down to 2 scores.
And I think that was part of the strategy.
Five false starts in that game. And that was, I'll pat myself and 110,000 of my closest friends in the back. It's 5 false starts, you're in their head. And that's the sort of thing that if you're Stroud, you've got to be able to avoid. And I just haven't seen enough mental toughness from him yet to say,
last week against Iowa was a perfect example of that. I mean, he had a couple frustrating plays, and you could see it really, physically affecting him. He's throwing his arms up. On that fumble, after he knew that Iowa had recovered it, he just laid on the ground, stretched out, and body language was everything. When you're the quarterback of the team, I get that you didn't have a chance to recover the fumble, but to sit there and already look so defeated. Granted, he came back in the second half, completely different player, which I think he
had a great game from a stats perspective.
Yeah,
no doubt about
and I think even, like I was saying, in the second half, he came out and he was that guy. He came out and performed. But there are those little things. I think Iowa was a team that you were able to do that in. Yeah. But if you have a bad first half against a good team like a Michigan or a Penn State, can you perform like that and still come away with the victory? I'm not I'm not sold on it. I will say, though, there is part of me, and I know that I talked about this on the podcast as well, where I feel like there have been numerous games this year where people go into it and they go, this is the biggest game of Ohio State's season so far. Like, this is their toughest test. And then they beat that opponent, and then we find out that opponent was kind of a fraud.
Yeah.
And there is a small part of me that thinks that's the case with Penn State. We're going to go in there, people are going to think, oh, they're 6-1, it's going to be a close game, and Ohio State's just going to absolutely manhandle them, and it'll be a blowout like what people thought Wisconsin might be.
Yeah.
Or it'll be one of those where we'll look back on it and we'll go, okay, well, Notre Dame was the number 5 team or whatever in the nation, and we beat them. Then you go to Wisconsin, you smack them. You go against...
I think the exception to that is that Notre Dame was the first game of the year.
Yeah.
And we didn't know any better.
But I think it's been like that. I mean, people kind of hyped up the Wisconsin game.
Yeah.
Then even the Iowa game, people were kind of hyping it up. I don't think people thought Iowa was going to win,
No.
but they were still hyping it up as this is their first true test against a legitimate defense. Ohio State still put up 54 points against that defense.
Penn State, we at least know who they are. We thought they were.
We say that every week.
We at least know what Penn State is. Penn State is a team that's capable of beating anybody. Maybe not anybody, but... I mean, Ohio State, I think, is as good as anyone. So they're capable of beating anybody. They're also capable of losing to just about anybody.
Yes.
I mean, I get it was like a really wet, rainy game that changes the whole game. 17-7 over Northwestern.
Gross.
You know?
And those are the games that I look at where I go, and didn't they barely beat Wisconsin?
I don't remember.
I think they beat them like 34-28. You'll have to fact check me on that. I think they barely beat them, and it might have even been in overtime.
They got smacked around by Michigan pretty heavily, and I don't know which of those we're going to see, right? Like, I don't know if we're going to see Ohio State just smack them around again, or if Penn State's going to come in and play the game of their lives. And I picked Penn State to win this game against my better judgment, because I think that this is a Penn State team that is fighting for their lives. They're fighting for their season. It's the 2016 thing all over again. Get beat up by Michigan, play number 2 Ohio State, pull an upset, and actually have a really successful season at the end of the year. I don't see any reason why that can't happen again. I'm not saying it will, but no reason why it won't happen.
Well, and I guess to kind of close it all up, for me at least, I look at this game and there are 2 things. I don't want Ohio State to lose because I'm a fan, and I also don't want to ride back in a car with you after a loss for 4.5 hours.
Wouldn't that be something?
I would hate that. You could Uber. But there's a part of me that I go, you know what? And I don't normally like to be this person, but there is a part of me that goes, you know what? You lose to Penn State on Saturday. You still can make the playoffs and win a championship. It would not eliminate Ohio State. All you would have to do, and it's a big task, but if you still go out and win out and you beat Michigan, the committee, you're still going to go to the Big Ten championship game. You win that, you're in.
If you lose, my guy, if you lose to Penn State, you ain't beating Michigan.
I don't know. I still think even if Penn State beats Ohio State, I still think Ohio State is a significantly better team.
Oh yeah. I don't doubt that.
So that's what I'm saying. Like, I think even if Ohio State somehow loses to Penn State, I think that there's still a chance they could win out and beat Michigan.
No, see, they're going to get the benefit of the doubt from the committee. Just like Alabama's going to.
Yeah. 100%.
Alabama obviously lost to a much better team in Tennessee than a loss to Penn State would be. But whether it's right or not, the committee is going to look at the full body. I mean, that's a whole discussion for another time. Rankings come out on Tuesday. First ones drop.
Yeah.
So that'll be worth keeping an eye on there. But I mean, the committee is going to look at the full body of work, as they should. But whether it's right or wrong, there's some name brand recognition with Ohio State that is going to be a benefit of the doubt type.
If you have a 1-loss Penn State and a 1-loss Ohio State, and Ohio State beat Michigan, Ohio State's going to be in the Big Ten championship.
Should we ask this Amish person what they think?
They're busy putting up a barn right now, so
that's cool.
Very fast.
We won't bother them.
Yeah, but I am a little nervous, and I get like that before any big game. The only game this year that was like a moderately big game was the Notre Dame game, where you just didn't know what to expect. And while I didn't think Notre Dame had the offense to keep up, there was a part of me that thought they would be able to keep it close and maybe steal that. I didn't count them out of it.
Yeah.
But
I guess,
and they did keep it close.
And I guess that's where I would wrap up too, is just say, like, and this was another Michigan beat that said this, like, Notre Dame showed it is possible to not be all that talented and still give Ohio State some fits. Because I'm not even willing to really give a lot of grace for first game of the year. They take some working out of some of the bugs and stuff. Notre Dame is a bad football team.
Yeah, they're what, like 3-4?
They're not, whatever they are, they're not good. And so if Notre Dame can do it with a pretty limited offense, I think Penn State would beat Notre Dame head-to-head.
Oh, yeah.
And so, I mean, who knows? This is why we play the game, right? So we'll have more on the way to Happy Valley today and tomorrow. Thanks for following, subscribing, all that good stuff. Boy, I would love to ride back 4.5 hours with you with the Penn State.
You'd be riding back with whatever other random fan would be coming back through Ohio.
It's going to be a good time.